Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm Keith Vitali. Welcome to Sidekick Podcast. In this episode, I have on a very special guest, a dear friend of mine. His name is Mike Stone. Before I bring him on, let me tell you a little bit about him. I've interviewed a good many icons and martial arts greats, and this one's a little different, and let me tell you why. Of course, he was a martial arts champion during his era, and he went on to do films and became an actor, stuntman, writer, and so many other things we're going to cover in topics in this interview. But here's a few things you might not be aware of. One is he started the ninja craze not only here in America, but all over the world. He had this idea about doing a ninja movie, had a movie produced called Enter the Ninja. Now, I'm very thankful for that movie because I played in the sequel, Revenge of the Ninja, and I co-starred with Sho Kosugi. So thank you, Mike, for that. Now, here's something else you might not be aware of. During his era, when he competed, in my opinion, Mike Stone was the single most intimidating black belt in America. Now, what does this mean? Well, when you put it into perspective that the people he competed against and the people he was training with at that time were the likes of Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Alan Steen, Joe Louis, and others of that same caliber. So when I say this man was the most intimidating man, then that says a lot. Please say hi to my good friend, Mike Stone.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Keith.
Well, listen, before we get um, and start dealing with our main topics of discussion, the audience is going to be so thrilled to hear about what we have to talk about. I want to share with the audience about our history a little bit, just a little bit. I'm going to
Sure.
talk in maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and some of the things you won't even know. But there's synergy out there. There's energy all over the world and inside all of us that we've talked about before, and we are really connected in so many different ways. Do you remember how we first met in Los Angeles?
No, I don't.
Let me tell you, it was at your student Steve Fisher's tournament, and you were the center referee, and I was fighting the grand championship match. And you didn't know this, but I had won the night before a grand championship match in South Carolina. I got on a plane with my good friend Mike Geneva. I flew to Los Angeles that same night, stayed at Steve Fisher's house. Steve wanted to talk the whole night, which we did. We got up in the morning. I go to the tournament. Now I'm fighting. I make my way up to the grand championship match, and I fought Steve. I'm fighting a guy named Nasty Anderson. He's my 17th fight in 2 days. So here I'm fighting him. It's 1-1. He scores on me, but then right before time runs out, he's running around. He runs out of the ring. I start yelling, going, "Stop the time! Stop the time!" You were the center referee. You went, "Don't tell me what to do." What? "I'm sorry, sir," but he getting back in the ring, he just started running out. Anyway, you you feel kind of bad. We had dinner that night. We bonded, and I started flying back and forth. We had a mutual friend, Alan DeMille, and I started flying to Los Angeles and hanging out with you. You taught me how to play golf, and I play every time I come out, you taught me how to play. You were the most incredible athlete I had ever seen. You taught me how to play racquetball. You were the most incredible athlete I'd ever seen. Now, when I say this, let me put it in proper perspective. I was supposed to be one of the best athletes on the planet at that time. I was a world-class distance runner. I had records. I was number 1 in the country fighting. That bad. I paled in comparison to your athletic skills. You were fantastic. But let me keep talking because you're not gonna believe this. I was so honored, became good friends. You allowed me to write the foreword for your book.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
such a wonderful book that you wrote. It's still a book that people have all over the world. Danny Onosanto, Bruce Lee's student, Steve Fisher, your student, and myself, you allowed us to write the foreword for your book, and we were so honored to do so. Look at you. You're like a good-looking James Bond, like a movie star. Look,
I
just look
don't
how
think
good
so.
looking you are. It's incredible. Now get this. Then you wrote the foreword for my book. I was writing books for contemporary back then, and you wrote the
Yeah.
foreword for that, so I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about synergy. Then I wrote a book about fighting for Inside Publications, and
Yeah.
you were on
Uh-huh.
the cover with me for that book. Then you were on the cover with me for a magazine for Inside Karate. I love this one. This is one of my favorite covers. I mean, so cool. I love my sidekick's my favorite technique. And inside this cover, inside this magazine, you won't believe this. I've written an article on positive reinforcement, positive imagery, and the things that you are a master that we'll be dealing with later in this interview. You are the master,
Yeah,
but think about the energy of that. And then here's this is way past your time of fighting. You already had retired and been doing movies. And here's a cover of you. You were teaching, I think, Michael Dudikoff about ninjas or, what training him or whatever. They did a feature on me in the same magazine, so we were connected even going back then. So I just wanted to share with the audience that we go way back, and it's not just one thing or two things. There's a lot of things that connected us, and all these years later, here we are. So thank you so much. You've been an inspiration for me. You helped me in so many ways that you're not aware of because those who inspire sometimes aren't aware of that. You two, you and Chuck Norris, my biggest inspirations when I was coming up. I wanted to be a role you
yeah,
my role models, I wanted to be just like you. Alright, we're gonna jump right into it now. Thank you for allowing me to vent a little bit and talk, and thank you for everything you've done for me. But now I want the audience to sit back and listen to you. This is your floor. I want you to talk about your new book that's gonna come out soon, about your relationship with Priscilla Presley, her daughter Lisa Marie, Elvis Presley, and go back and start at the beginning, how you met, and how that progressed, and the floor is yours. Go, sir.
yeah. Uh, and I may not be accurate on the dates, so but people that are fact checkers, they can go back and try to find out the exact dates. But the first time I saw her and Elvis was in Hawaii, and Elvis was sponsoring mainland uh, versus Hawaii team championships that I fought in. And I think Elvis was on his honeymoon at the Ilikai in Hawaii at the time, and they was invited by Ed Parker, and they came to the event. So that's the first time I actually saw Priscilla and Elvis in person. They did not stay to the very end because it would have caused an uproar in the arena if Elvis stayed after everybody broke up. So they left a few minutes before the final matches. But that was the first time we met. Then I did a bodyguard trip for a guy named Phil Spector, uh, the Spector Wall of Pound. He's a very
Wow.
famous record producer, and he was invited to Las Vegas to watch an Elvis show, and they were interested in Phil Spector probably producing a single for Elvis. Uh, so we went to that show, and after the performance, we went backstage, and I met Elvis and Priscilla again briefly there. Uh, the third time, I it was an interesting. We were at Chuck Norris and our wives were at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas just on the weekend holiday, and all of a sudden, Elvis apparently walked into the casino, and we were quite a distance from the entrance of the casino. But the word of Elvis entering the arena was so amazing. It was like really there was a fire that had happened, and everybody was just in chaos. The excitement that spread throughout the casino when he walked in must have covered the 100 meters from where we were to the entrance of the thing. And he walked in, and then he sat with Sonny West, Dave Hebler, Jerry Schilling, a couple of the other people. They sat in a slightly elevated lounge area of the casino. And again, the noise was just incredible. How everybody's just buzzing. There's a sound. It's not audible so that you can hear what they're saying, but it's just gibberish, but just noise. But I turned to Chuck and I said, Chuck, listen, oh, that's Elvis. He saw us fight in Hawaii. So why don't we go over and say hello? And you know how Chuck is. He's adorable. He goes, oh no, maybe we should not go. And I said, no, come on. And Diane, his wife at the time, very aggressive. So I said, no, come on, let's go. So I started to walk toward Elvis, and Chuck, Diane, and my wife Fran was following close behind. So as I approached the steps leading up to the lounge area, Sonny, and a couple other guys started to approach me because I was making a beeline directly for Elvis's booth where he
Right.
was sitting. So they came to interrupt or to at least stop me. So as they came, I was wondering, like, what's the big deal? So just then, just before they stopped me, Elvis stood up from behind the booth where he was seated and said, "Hey, Mike Stone, come on in, come." So they just let me through, and then Chuck and Diane followed. So we met him that time, and then he invited us to watch one of his shows. Priscilla, what had happened was, there's several things that I want to get clear. And one of the things I want to get clear is you can never steal another human being. That's called kidnapping. I was never charged for kidnapping Priscilla.
No,
So
no.
this idea that I stole Elvis's wife has been exaggerated, and some of the things I don't appreciate because they're totally not true. But truth becomes what everybody hears for a long time. Even when you lie to yourself, at some point it becomes true. It becomes your reality. So we have to be careful the information that we're hearing from outside people. So anyway, the idea was that I stole Priscilla, which was not true. Uh, and that the biggest thing that hurt me, and apparently other people are upset about it, was that they said I was disloyal to the friendship of Elvis. Now, I will tell you truthfully, in all the times I've seen and met Elvis, if you can come up with 100 words that I spoke to him, I'll give you $1,000. So we were not close friends. We never spoke privately. We never was in a situation. It was all either private. When I mean private, private with his people, but someone always there, or social in a setting like at a showroom or something like that. But never did we ever converse. I was also credited with being Elvis's instructor. I never taught him one lesson, not one. So if people say these things and you go back and you say, well, Bill Wallace was an instructor, Ed Parker was, Connery was, and you can find documentation of him and them being together in schools in Atlanta or Memphis or LA. You'll never find a picture with Elvis and I anywhere doing anything close to being a teacher-student relationship. So a lot of these things get blown out of proportion.
So was he taking
I
karate
understand.
before
I'm
before
sorry.
your involvement with Priscilla?
I'm sorry.
Was Elvis Presley already involved taking martial arts karate lessons
Oh, sure.
during
Long,
this
long
time?
before
Yeah.
me. Yeah, he was with Ed
Wow.
Parker for a long time before, and with Connery, and even with Bill. So, no, the fact that I got credit for it, and I say credit because it's an honor to be even put in the same conversation with him. But no, I never taught him a lesson. But those things can get blown out of proportion. And you have to realize, or people should have enough personal integrity to stop and actually think before they accept something that they call a reality. They have to just take a moment to put it together. But people are speaking out of their own fears and their own emotions, and primarily the idea of loss. By what I mean by loss is if you lose your wife, if you lose a friend, it's you're losing something. So people will gather around you if you are supposedly the victim of that particular experience. So if you lost a friend, I would say, "Oh man, I'm sorry about your loss. I'm sad to hear about it. My condolences." So we have a natural tendency to allow pity to be granted to what we perceive of as the victim. But in life, really, I'll talk about this later. But in life, there is no such thing as a victim. There are no victims, really. Now, when I say this, I know everybody's going to be jumping up and down. By all means, if your belief in reality allows you to continue to believe that you are a victim and that things happen to you in life, then you'll continue being this idea you call a victim. There are no victims. The universe does not make any distinctions between personalities, between sex, between race, between religion. There is none of this prejudicial ideas. Humans make mistakes. The universe does not. It is
You know,
flawless.
I was going to say something too, Mike. We have a lot of listeners our audience are young too, that they don't know the proper perspective of how powerful this guy was, Elvis was back then. They were the Beatles, Muhammad Ali, and then probably Elvis Presley were the 3 biggest people on the planet. So you can just imagine that he was a sensation not just here, but all over the world. If we had the
Yes,
internet now, back then, I mean, there would have been 100 million people sending you emails and writing comments to you. So you just have to remember for those watching this, it was that big of a sensation in this country around the world when all of this was going on. So there was millions
yes,
of people formulating opinions that they were just speculating, and most of it was wrong. But I'm glad you're clearing all this up because I didn't even know a lot of this.
yes. So, but in understanding, and you can only get understanding one way, I believe. Okay, look, I'm going to come up with some off the wall stuff that people are going to say, what planet is this guy on? Well, I've been living in this particular environment where I'm sitting talking with you for nearly 40 years. When I made the decision to leave America, I did it for some reasons we'll talk about a little bit later. But back to Priscilla. Uh, Priscilla started to get interested in doing karate. She was taking karate at the same time Elvis was taking lessons from Ed Parker. So at this initial stage, she was already taking private lessons with Elvis, with Ed Parker. They were doing it separately, not in the same class. So then it came up the idea, Ed Parker suggested that she take lessons from Chuck Norris because he had the school in Sherman Oaks and was relatively close by for her. So she decided to do that. Then, because of that, she had attended a tournament by a very good friend of ours who recently passed on. I love him very much, is Bob White. And Bob White had a tournament at Bolsa Chica High School in Orange County. And Priscilla was there with a lady called Joanne Esposito, Joe Esposito's wife. I walked into the arena and Bob White saw me. He was by the head table where the people do all the announcements and set up the rings. And he waited for me to come across. And there were two beautiful girls in front of him. So I walked there, and then we were behind them. They were very close to a ring watching a match. So we were about maybe 10, 15 feet behind. And he says, "Oh, do you know who that is?" And I said, "No." He said, "That's Priscilla Presley." And I thought he was talking about the blonde, Joni Esposito. I had forgotten what Priscilla's hair was like, because women change their hair color all the time. So I had really forgotten what Priscilla looked like. And I was now looking at the back of their heads. So he said, "Oh, that's Priscilla Presley." So I said, "Oh, yeah." And then, so we continued talking. Then all of a sudden, the fighters were, it's a ring, not a ring with ropes. It's, how they tape the floor. So the fighters in the ring started to be aggressive toward the girls and were fighting nearly outside of the ring. And they did go outside, but almost hit the women that were in front. Well, they both backed up, but the brunette literally threw herself into my arms. And I actually caught her under her armpits with both hands. And she was so heavy because it was really dead weight. I mean, if I didn't put my arms there, she nearly took me to the floor. So I held her up and then lifted out. She turned back and she said, "Thank you." And I said, "You're welcome." But he says, "Oh, that's Priscilla." I said, "Oh, that one. I thought it was the blonde." He said, "No, that's Priscilla." So now we fast forward to maybe 1972 or 3 at the internationals. I was sitting at the corner, the ring is elevated about a meter or so, about 3 feet above the ground. And then we were all sitting, me, Alan Steen, um, Pat Burleson, Chuck Norris, Joe Louis, Jim Harrison. Did I say Jim? Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
you
we're
didn't.
all
Oh my
sitting
goodness.
along one side of the ring, and I was sitting the closest one to where the fighters walk up to the platform. And Alan Steen leaned forward uh, and looked over at me and said, Mike, I want you to meet someone." So I just leaned forward like that, and he said, "I want you to meet Priscilla Presley." So she leans forward in front of Alan Steen and goes, "Hi, Mike." I said, "Hi, Priscilla." And that was it. Now, when the tournament was over, I was talking to a good friend of mine that lived in Orange County, and he had lions. He was allowed to. He lived in Orange County, and he was allowed to have lions in his property. His name was Dick Dale, from Dick Dale and the Deltones, a left-handed guitar player that had that surfing. He had that particular style of playing guitar. So I was talking with him and his wife, because his wife is Hawaiian Filipino, and she's a dancer at one of the Hawaiian troops, like Polynesian shows.
Right.
So we were just talking, and Priscilla just walked right into our conversation and said, "Oh, so what are you guys talking about?" Now, I didn't know she knew Dick Dale. So, but she just stuck right in the conversation and said, "Oh, so what are you guys talking about?" And I was like, "Man, what's wrong with this girl? She's so rude." Because I just met her for the waving, but now this is after the event. So now Dick says, "Oh, Mike, this is." I said, "Yeah, I just met her a few minutes ago." So now I know that they knew each other. So we continued our conversation, and then Jerry Schilling walks over and says, he calls her Scylla, uh, you know, Cilla is for Priscilla. He said, "Scylla, we have to go home now." So they're going to drive back up to Beverly Hills. Elvis was probably there. So they walked away, and as they walked, she said good night to Dick Dale and his wife, but she didn't say anything to me. So I was going like, man, this girl really is rude. So they walked away, and they walked maybe about 50 feet, 60 feet away to the entrance to the arena area. And she stopped there. She turned back and she yelled. Now, there were still quite a few people milling around. And she goes, uh, "Good night, Mike Stone." And this is the thing.
Oh
And I
my
said, like,
goodness.
wow, she's so weird. And he says, "Mike, I think she likes you." I said,
Yeah, I
"What?"
think so too.
Oh, by doing it like that. So
Yeah,
he said, "I
yeah.
think she likes you." So anyway, she was taking lessons with Chuck. And one night I went up to see Chuck, and I didn't know that she was in the class, really. So when we were up there, just toward the end of Chuck's session, we were going to go out to have a drink. So when we were there, the class ended, and Priscilla and Joni was not participating, but Scylla took the class. So they waited around until pretty much everybody was leaving, and Chuck had tried to help everybody hurry up because we wanted to leave to go get something to drink after and talk for a few minutes. So in the process, the girls stayed back longer than usual, that they were still around as we were getting ready to, Chuck was closing up and everything. So the cars were parked in the back of Chuck's school. So Chuck says, "Oh, you ready?" I said, "Yeah, okay, let's go." So Priscilla says, "Oh, where you guys going?" And Chuck says, "Oh, we're just going to go next door to have a drink at this place called the Tiki Club on Sherman Oaks or by Ventura Boulevard." So she goes, "Oh, do you mind if we come along?" So I was shocked too. And Chuck was also shocked because apparently she's been taking classes there for a while. And I don't think this has ever happened. So she invited herself with Joni. And so when we went outside to get ready to leave, I thought I was being a gentleman by opening up the front passenger side. Chuck is going to drive. I was going to sit in the back seat. So I opened up the passenger side for Priscilla to go in because that's Chuck's student. And apparently she knows Chuck more than Joni does. And that's their relationship. So I just opened the door for her. And as I opened the door to turn for her to pass me, Joni passes right by me quickly and sits down. And I looked, I did a double take, like, "Oh, where's Priscilla?" I looked and she's in the back seat and she went like this, patted the seat, like, "Come sit here." I was
Yes.
like, "What?" I said, "Chuck, it's okay." He said, "Yeah." So I went in the back with Priscilla, sit down. And when we went to this tiki thing, then everybody was much more relaxed and her tone changed a lot. She was a lot more friendly and really very nice. So we may have spent an hour and a half there, but she persisted in asking me for my phone number so she could call me up about coming to take lesson. And she's
Where
saying
was
that in
Elvis?
the
Excuse me. Where was Elvis, her husband, at this time?
at home.
Was he
In
on tour?
No, he was at the house in Hillcrest. Oh no, at
I
this
got you.
time he was probably not there. I'm talking about the time at the international tournament.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, at
I'm
that
sure he
time,
was touring all
Jerry
the
Schilling.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Albert was there because Jerry Schilling was responsible for it, and Jerry Schilling was said we have to go home now. So that means Albert was
Okay.
must have been home. But I'm talking about
Wow.
the night of the class with Chuck. I'm sure Elvis was probably not there. So she kept persisting about asking for my phone number. So I said, well, you know how far it is from Orange, from my dojo to Beverly Hills? I said, it's about 60 miles one way. And she goes, oh, well, I've never driven on the freeway. I said, you've never been on the, no, not by myself. I've never driven alone on the freeway. And I said, then I think it's not a good idea. Why would you ever think about taking classes from, I said, there's not one karate instructor I met that I would drive 60 miles to take lessons from. Right? I'm really confused. Like, what in the world are you talking about? And Chuck Norris is definitely one of the very best instructors, as well as people, as well as champion. So you cannot get any better than Chuck Norris. So, but she just said, "Well, can I just have you?" What? And then she started the defensive thing, right? So you don't want me to come down and take classes? I said, "No, it's not that." I said, "But it's just not practical. You take it from one of the best. It's very close to your house. It doesn't take you much time." So anyway, uh, I said, "Here's my number." She said, "Do you mind if I call you?" I said, "No, you can call if you want." So when she called one time, about a week later, I was on the mat having a private lesson, and we have instructions to the people that help in the dojo. If anybody calls when I'm on the mat to speak with me, I'm not available. Just take their number or their name, and I'll call them after the class is over. Well, in the middle of the class, Katie Severs, who was one of my female black belts that was handling the telephone, she gets the phone and I'm having a private, and she goes, "Oh, Mr. Stone," and she's holding the mouthpiece on the phone. Somebody's here to talk to you. I said, "Katie, no, I can't talk to her, whoever it is. I'm on a private lesson." So she goes, "But it's Priscilla Presley." And I made the mistake. Sometimes I'm so naive and stupid. I said, "I don't care who it is, just tell her to call back." So Priscilla must have heard me say that.
Oh my
So
gosh.
after my Priscilla calls back again later, and then when I took the call and she was talking to me, and she says, "How come you so rude to me?" I said, "What did I do?" She said, "I called you. Why didn't you take my call?" I said, "Oh, we just have a policy about not being interrupted while we're having a private lesson." So I said, it was no real big inconvenience. It was only about 15 minutes that you had to wait. And she was huffed about that, like, "Oh, how dare you?" And she said, so when do you have classes? I said, all the way through to Friday night. So she said, can I stop by one of the nights? I said, sure. And she said, what night is best? I said, any night you want. So they came on the Friday night, her and Jess, it was Joni Esposito. They came, and then right after, we have a policy on Friday nights, is after our workouts on Friday nights, all the senior students, we go to a pizza parlor right next door to the dojo, and we have pizza, beer, and salad. So I said, oh, listen, you guys better go. It's a long drive up. And she goes, well, where are you guys going? I said, we're just going to go next door for a pizza. So again, she invited herself like she always does. She said, oh, do you mind if we come along? And how can you say no? I said, yeah, of course. So they came and sat down and stayed with us pretty much the entire time, until we finally all had to leave and go home. And then she said, "Oh, do you mind if I come back and take a class?" I said, "You mean after that drive and everything, you still want to try and take a lesson?" And she goes, "Yeah."
Oh,
So anyway, that's how everything started.
wow. That I mean, by telling the story, it's obvious to the listeners that she really liked you, and and you were kind of naive about it because being an instructor, you have so many students, and everybody's always looking up to the instructor. So you probably kind of weren't paying too much attention. How long did she take classes with you or under you?
Well, once she started, she was, we were together for like 4 years. So from the time she started to take classes and come down to Orange County, uh, and then we had an apartment. We ended up getting an apartment much later into the relationship in Belmont Shore. and then eventually got it when the word, we were, imagine this, Keith, we were physically dating for over a year that nobody knew about it, only my students. Now, if you talk about loyalty, that's loyalty. Nobody said anything to anyone.
Can
So
I
it was only
intercede
after
here just
that.
a little bit? Here's something that most people the martial artists listen to this, we have a lot of martial artists that listen to the podcast. They understand what I'm saying, is that the just the makeup of a karate school owner, instructor, is that you actually spend more time at your school from morning till night than you do at home with your wife. So you can imagine
Absolutely.
that you're away all the time. You're and it when you're not only there, you're also traveling to tournaments or promoting tournaments. And now you
Yes,
have students that look up to you. I showed everybody how you look in your day. You look like one of the best looking men on the planet. So you can imagine you're a grand champion winner of internationals, you're famous, and here's somebody that takes martial arts. Every student would be inspired by be looking up. So it's not yes or but it's just obvious. It's just how life works. Spending more time with you, you know, really, looking up to you. And then again, it's just how it is in the martial arts world. We spend more time on the mat than we do with
for
our own
sure.
wives during those times. Do you agree?
Absolutely. From 10 in the morning or 9, 10 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And then every weekend or every other weekend, you're at your
Yeah.
tournament or somebody else's tournament that you have to support and send students. So this is a vicious cycle. It's impossible to get away. I mean, if you're in that lifestyle, you're in that lifestyle. And I can see how, first of all, anybody's relationship, it doesn't have to be a martial artist. It can be anybody. If a husband is working to support his family and he works 10, 12 hours a day and he comes home, I can understand why all he wants is give me the remote control and keep quiet. Give me a beer from the riff, whatever it is. This is my time. I dedicated my 8, 10, 12 hours to my family.
You
I,
got it.
I bring I support you. I give you what you want because the wife is, I need a new car. I need a new vacuum cleaner. I need a new this. I need this. The kid says, Daddy, I need a computer. I need this. So once he comes home after 10 hours of work, he is just besieged by people asking for things they want, need. And all he wants is give me 30 minutes, give me a beer, give me the remote, and just leave me alone. That's why men have these thing called caves that they create in their home. It's a place for
You
them
know,
to escape.
you won't believe this. You told me something playing golf back in the I was a young man and I was listening to you and you said something, so intimidating back then. And you just said there was an intangible about martial arts instructors all over the country, all over the world. We wear uniforms, we're performing. If you have good form and you look good, there's an aesthetic beauty to it. And so you have students that look up in every system and
Yeah, for
every
sure.
style, not just yours. I was guilty of it myself. I had all these people looking up to me. I'm in a uniform, I'm on covers, and so I understand exactly what you went through and that's just it's the reality of life. That's all it is.
Yeah, but I'm going to say something, Keith. I mean it with all the greatest respect. I'm not trying to correct you, but I think you have to change the word about guilty. You said I feel guilty. Never feel guilty about any decision you make. Never.
Right? I got a wife
It,
now.
it-
I'm glad my wife's not listening to this because my wife would walk in the door going, "Can you repeat that guilty word again?" I went, "No, no, because that's not the word I should use." I just hope she's upstairs not listening. But thank you for correcting me on that one.
no, I wasn't correcting you. We have to be careful because I'll talk about it again
Exactly.
later. I believe in
Right.
power. Everything is energy, and there's power in words. All words vibrate at particular frequencies of energy. And when you use a word, your intention in the way you use it, in the way you define it, it also defines you. So you have to be very careful what words you
Right.
select to
Good point.
choose when talking.
Good point. Very good point. So so let's take it now. You moved in together. How long did you stay in California before you maybe moved to Vegas or wherever you did? And why did you decide to leave?
Leave where?
You said Priscilla moved in with you, lived with you about 4 years with Lisa Marie. Did you stay
Yeah.
in California or I mean, in California, did you move out?
No, we stayed in California. And again, maybe to dispel other people's perceptions about Elvis, there was some talk that I prevented Elvis from seeing Lisa. I mean, are you serious? I'm going to prevent Elvis from seeing his daughter? There's no way. With Elvis, Lisa was the most important thing. So for him, everything was about her security. So when we had that little apartment, it was just during the time that we were getting to know each other, which was again a year before anybody realized. It got to a point for her that she felt, here's the word, guilty and ashamed for what she felt like she was cheating and going behind Elvis's back. But her intention already, when she first saw me, she admitted years later, when she first saw me fight in Hawaii, at that moment she looked and she says, that's the guy I want. She admitted this years later.
Right.
So it was an intention. And again, if you listen to her story that she just made the movie, and you listen, read all of the things. Listen, I'm not saying anything that isn't out there for someone that is honestly curious, that they can research and find out the truth. She was not happy in Graceland. Why? When you're kept, listen, there's a situation that happened 2 years ago. There's some Saudi kings. These people ruled their wives to where three daughters, the wife and two daughters, escaped to England. It's a big court case now. One of the richest guys in the world. Now they estimate their net worth at 3 or 4 billion. Please, just what they spend is over 14, 15 billion. So they
Wow.
lowered their worth in front, but they are spending. How can you buy a $500 million aircraft? How can you buy all of these things? And if so, anyway, it was that this whole idea was Priscilla wanted to get away. She wanted to find a way out. And maybe, I'm just saying maybe, she saw in me the only person that Elvis respected because of Ed Parker talking about me so much, that I was a legitimate champion, that I was a badass in the eyes of Elvis himself, that said it to her and said it to Red West and Sonny West, how good I am because of what Ed Parker talks about me. So all of this buildup was that she felt maybe it's a guy like this. Because listen, we're going to be honest, right? I mean, we will always be honest. I was not good looking. I was not wealthy. I was not famous. That is the truth. She could have found a million other guys in Beverly Hills, much wealthier, much more good looking, have more fame than I ever had. So that is not the reason. Her choosing had to do with something other than money, fame, and good looks. And I
Hey,
had
I
all
hate this.
three. I
I hate to correct you, sir. I hate to correct you. You're about as good looking as you could be back then, and you were pretty famous. I mean, we were all us coming up. We all knew all about you, everything that you've done. So in our world, our circle, you were famous. You know the caliber of Elvis Presley around the world, but in the our community, our genre, believe me, sir, you were famous.
Yes, but that's a very small pond. Elvis Presley was
Right?
in the biggest pond. It's called the world.
Exactly.
I was in a small
Exactly.
pond. I understand. I really know who I am, Keith. So I appreciate the compliments you're saying. But again, we have to put it in perspective. In the
Right. You're right.
scheme of everything, in the scheme of the universe, I'm insignificant. It's really like a grain of sand. That is the truth. But in that particular instance, she may have seen something in me that she
Right.
thought she could use and needed to be leverage and a crowbar to get out of her present relationship. Now, I've
I
been
see.
accused of this right away. My ex wife said, you know, she's using you to get away from Elvis. And of course, my ego said, of course not. I'm handsome, rich, and famous. That's not the reason. So, you know, again, we have to keep everything in the right order here.
Right.
So,
Right.
is that possible? Yes, it is. Was she was very unhappy. She was desperate to get out of that situation. Just look at the movie she made about her life. You talk about, and that's what she puts on the screen. So
Right.
can you imagine how desperate she really must have been? Can you imagine You're 14, 15, 16. You're living at the king's mansion, and these other beautiful women that he's entertaining, having sex with, having affairs with. What does that do for her ego? You talk about crush. She doesn't feel she even exists. You talk about beauty. She's definitely one of the prettiest women in the world at that time. But she didn't feel beautiful at all. She felt ugly. She felt like he didn't want to touch her. I mean, what can that do for a young woman? So we have to put everything in order. We cannot just get stuck. And I understand. We can listen, as a karate teacher, I can only teach you what I know. That's it. I can't teach you what I don't know. And my knowledge in what I can teach you is limited to what I know. So we have to keep everything in proportion.
Well, let me ask you this. I've read accounts of her as well that she really gave you a lot of praise about, she felt trapped in that relationship with Elvis, and then you opened up her eyes, and showed her a whole different world that she wasn't exposed to before. So, she had nice things to say that way. But during your relationship, how did you get along with her? Was it a happy relationship?
Fantastic. Yes, fantastic. Listen, the book I'm writing right now, people may be disappointed. So I'll tell you in advance what the book is about. If you want to read any scandalous, horrendous, nasty things, you will not find it.
Gotcha.
Doesn't happen.
Well, can I ask you another question too? And, I wouldn't bring it up if I hadn't seen it on the internet in so many
Yeah.
different links, so I'm not trying to stir something up, but she brought up the fact that Elvis had put a hit on you at one time. Were you aware of that?
Can I answer it this way?
What? Yes.
Am I alive?
Yeah. No. Yeah, but, she was talking all about it, and, yeah,
No,
I
it's
didn't
true.
know.
It's true.
Yeah.
When
Is it
she
true?
went to tell Elvis, yeah, when she went, it was February 2nd. It was actually Lisa's birthday that Elvis was performing in Vegas that particular year, and I think Lisa had just turned 6. And she went there to tell Elvis that she was going to not leave him, not get a separation, to get a divorce. So when Elvis realized that she was serious, that it was not a separation, they're not going to have a trial period apart, that she wanted a complete severance of the relationship completely to a divorce. He was furious. So, and I can understand that when you're the wealthiest, the handsomest, the most famous guy in the world, I can understand your ego is totally crushed. When your wife
Right.
tells you she's going to leave you for a nobody that is ugly and has no money. Okay,
I
we
love
can laugh
that.
about we can
We
laugh
can
about this
disagree on
later.
all that, but go ahead.
Yeah, we have a podcast to do. So yeah,
I can
so
imagine from
yeah,
his perspective how he couldn't he had to be scared of you because physically is a form of power. There's money power, political power, all kind of power, gun power, but you had physical power. So I think he feared you to some degree that he had to only thing he could think of would be to hire somebody to go after you.
well, I'll tell you a little private incident right now that I don't think I even have it in the book. There was a time we were living in Marina Del Rey. This was before he made the transition from Orange County to Beverly Hills because he wanted a secure house for Lisa. So the house on Summit Drive that we moved to was really something that Elvis's wanted because it had secure gates. It was in a very good neighborhood. Our neighbors were Gregory Peck and Sammy Davis Jr. So he
Wow.
felt secure, and Lisa was taken care of, and that's all he was interested in. But when this thing came up about him being upset, uh, at one point, after they had already gotten divorced, Elvis would still call Priscilla from time to time, supposedly to check up on Lisa, but he wanted to see if he could rekindle whatever they had. And she was having none of it. So this one night he calls, and Priscilla is crying on the phone. So I asked her, Priscilla, what's up? Oh, nothing. I said, who are you talking to? No, it's okay. And she's still crying. I said, Priscilla, what's up? And she goes, it's Elvis. And I said, what is he saying? And she goes, I can't tell you. I said, what is he saying? And she goes, I can't tell you. And she's still crying. So then I said, finally says, give me the phone. So I just take the phone, and then Elvis is slurring. So I know he's on
Right.
something. And that's probably why he's saying some of the things. So when I hear him slurring like that, I said, Elvis, if you ever want to find me, I will never hide from you. Never. You can always find me. That's what I said. And I gave her back the phone. After she hung up, he said, he's going to come over there, put me on my knees, and make me beg for my life. I said, really? Like
Okay.
now? Is he coming
Wow.
over now?
Wow.
Listen, these type of things. Listen, yes, physically, Dave Hebler. You know who Dave Hebler is?
Yes.
He was a black belt at Parker and was on the Memphis Mafia. Dave Hebler and a couple of the other guys wrote a book called Elvis: What Happened. You remember that book?
I
It
had
was
never
the
read
book.
that. No.
Well, it's an interesting book because that's when the bodyguards got together and knew that they could no longer have this free pass in life. That Elvis was actually really going to fire them finally for real. When they knew that was a situation because of his drug addiction, this time he was with Ginger. When they knew they're not coming back and he really meant it this time, the only recourse they had, they thought, was to write a book about all of the bad things that he did, the drugs, the womanizing, everything. So they wrote that. But in this book, they also talked about when Elvis got upset and wanted to have me assassinated. So when they wrote about that, Dave Hebler, who knows me probably better than any of the other guys because he's a Kempo martial artist from Ed Parker, he said, "Does Elvis was in fantasy land thinking that he would ever have a chance to fight Mike Stone up and up? Never. He wouldn't last 1 minute." And this was Dave Hebler saying. And then I've had conversation with Elvis's stepbrother, Stanley, that also talked about an incident where during their karate training, he swept Elvis off his feet and knocked him down in a living room setting there with all the bodyguards around. And Elvis stood up and said, don't you ever do that again. So if you watch some of the videos that were out about Elvis's training with people, and he has this elaborate outfit, that's fantastic. You can wear whatever you want. But if you look closely at what the techniques are and what you're doing, listen, if you're a martial artist, it is who you are. It is inherent in every fiber, every cell of your body. When you live this idea, it's not someplace you go to practice for an hour and a half. Being a true martial artist to me is 24/7. This is who you are. It's not something you're training to become, like a champion or an expert or good at something. No, 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 no. That's not a martial artist. You have to live this idea. So if you were to ask me, Mike, of all the people you've met in the martial arts, how many masters have you met? Well, let me see. I think there's only one that I've met. His name is Oshima. That's it. Everybody else, everybody else is trying. They're not masters. Who I respect the most is Danny Inosanto.
Well, do you know, I would go train with Bill Wallace in the early days in Memphis, then go over to King Reed School, and King Reed gave me a photograph of him with Elvis Presley one time. He just said, "Here,
Yeah.
I signed it for you." And he gave me I've got it someplace. Let's finish up then with Priscilla before we move on to another topic. How did the relationship end, and are you still was it a friendly, breakup? What was the situation?
Yes, it was. Again, like in the book I talk about our 4 years with Priscilla and Lisa. Now, those 4 years to me, I was absolutely blessed. Why? One of the prettiest women in the world chose me for whatever reason, whatever her motive, her agenda, her intentions. That's not my business. So, for whatever reason, I was blessed to have her. The other thing is that when I left my wife and my 6 year old, Lisa was also 6 years old. So living with Lisa allowed me an opportunity to have a daughter, quote unquote, not my daughter, but a person like my daughter, the same age that I had an opportunity to be with for 4 years that I wasn't with my own daughter. So this was a blessing for me. All of our
That's good.
situations, I have never had a fight or an argument with Priscilla. This is the
Oh,
truth. Never.
that's incredible.
Now, why did we leave? It's a very interesting question. But listen, if you have half a brain and two cells in your brain that you can rub together to have a thought, the idea is life is based on energy. Life is based on cycles and rhythms. We all have it in the way we breathe, the way we move. It's all about cycles and rhythm. If you don't understand who you are, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know how you connect to the natural world, and to the universal intelligence, if you don't have an understanding of that, you will always have problems. Human beings do that. I'll talk about it later. But anyway, the idea is this, that when we separated because I also understood. I made a statement that the worst time in my life was the last year with Priscilla. The worst time in my life ever was with her. Now, how can I say that and still feel it was okay? Because I went through a transition like she did. I was growing and learning as she was. We just got to a point when whatever her reason and agenda was, she now started to move off in that direction. When she started to feel comfortable about herself, she was now divorced. She was now free. People in Hollywood knew she was free. She was available. She opened up Biz and Bo, the clothing store, so she had more contact with people. Listen to this. Priscilla never introduced me to a friend of hers other than Joanne. I've never met a friend of Priscilla in the 4 years I've been with her. All of her friends were my friends. My world became her world. And until we moved to Beverly Hills and she slowly got reintroduced into that lifestyle that she knew and that she wanted to be a part of, she always wanted to be an actress. So all of these things, if people can understand this, open up your heart and mind. It's a natural transition we all make, if we're honest. It's a natural evolution. So when our energy finished in the romantic way that she wanted to have the relationship, when that ended, then she was moving off in a direction that she wanted to go, to make movies, become a celebrity, to do all this. She couldn't have done it with me. Why? I hated that. I hated Hollywood. These guys are so full of BS. Let's lunch. Let's do this. They're so phony. I want nothing to do with it. So the last year of our relationship, when she was going off in that direction, that's what I was exposed to. And I didn't like it at all. I was happy to leave. So we parted ways. And it was not, even after we left, we would still call and talk to each other, sometimes 5 and 6 months after we had separated. So how bad could it have been? There was never ever screaming, yelling, nothing. Really, I'm not joking. So the 4 years I've been blessed to be with her and Lisa, and that's what I write about. So if people want gossip, buy another book.
So tell me about your book. When do you predict that it'll be ready, be published
In June,
in June? And
yes,
will it be on Amazon? Are you self-publishing? Do you have a publisher? How would we look for it? How can we purchase one
yeah, I
for the
will
audience?
self-publish on Amazon.
I got you. Well, good. Well, listen, I thank you so much for sharing all of this personal stuff that the whole world wants to know about with my audience. And I want to end this session by just thanking you for being on the show today because we have another session to do with you with whole different topics. And I kind of want to make this finite and just deal with the book issue. So thank you so
I
much
appreciate that.
for being on the show today.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you very much.